Welcome to Gone Fishing, a show diving into the cybersecurity threats that surround our highly connected lives. Every human is different. Every person has unique vulnerabilities that expose them to potentially successful social engineering. On this show, we'll discuss human vulnerability and how it relates to unique individuals. I'm Connor Swalm, CEO of FinSecurity, and welcome to Gone Fishing. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Gone Fishing. I'm your host, Connor, CEO at Fin, and I'm joined once again by the wonderful Andrea Ayala.
Yeah, you crushed it.
There we go. I got it. Third time's a charm.
I know.
The senior community manager at ScalePad. If you haven't listened to the previous episode, we've talked about personal brand, authenticity, and community, why it's important, the network effect. And today we're going to do a little bit of a deeper dive on what looks like authenticity and community, and maybe as an individual, and maybe as a company. I don't know. I'll let you take it wherever you want.
Pulling it all together into one. So, we talked a little bit about this previously, and in different ways. Over the course of my career, I've had a lot of opportunity to build different programs, and they've all kind of centered around, what are the benefits for the people who are going to be using them. And what can we bring to make it easier for them? How can we make their lives easier? And I think sometimes that's overlooked with new, products coming out and new programs being built and partner programs and advisory councils and all that stuff. It's often overlooked of what are the actual benefits here? What's going to drive somebody to be to continue to want to be a part of this? And it's not an easy thing to figure out, I don't think. It really depends on a person and what really drives them. I was reading a book recently where they talked about individual drivers of motivation and what motivates a person to succeed or to want to be, a part of something, and everyone's different. Some people are motivated by money, which you'll find, like that's why a lot of vendors do those giveaways for Uber Eats or whatever, DoorDash, for it to come to their webinars. Some people are motivated by money. Some people are motivated by recognition, and some people are motivated just purely for helping and feeling like they're a help to somebody else. And if you could combine all of those things into one, I think you've got kind of like a secret sauce of here's what you can give to a community.
It's definitely like if you want to have the best version of the community that you have, you need to know how every individual person in that community is motivated. And some people want sometimes like just asking them is the best way to do it. It's like,
yeah,
I gave you a Starbucks gift card. Would you like that more than, I don't know, having another 30-minute phone call? Some people are like, yeah, I don't want to talk to you. Give me Starbucks.
Yeah, and I think it takes asking and like having those hard questions too, because when you don't, it's left. A lot of things are left on the table. Like it's a lot of ambiguity, and feeling like confident and comfortable enough to say, is what we're doing right? Is what we're doing wrong? Give us some feedback here. It's easier to ask for feedback than it is, I think, to accept it sometimes, in personal and in professional.
It's true. I think being able to accept honest criticism, it's like, I always try to explain people, it's like, good ideas should live on their own. And for those of you just listening, I'm trying to surround myself with my hands. You, the ethereal you, not just me, not just you, but you, the person listening to this, you are a you. If you can divorce your ideas from your own self-worth, it's like you are more than the collection of ideas that you hold. And if you can't do that and somebody tries to give you honest criticism or honest feedback or tries to explain something in a different light that may change one of your beliefs, you'll take that as an attack on yourself because of the amount of self-worth you ascribe to holding that belief. So what I try to tell anyone, and a community can largely operate as an individual. Like if it's like the community is more than the set of beliefs it has, and if the people can't in the community can't divorce the beliefs the community has from the worth the community has, trying to solicit this open and honest feedback, or trying to give it back to them and say, actually, this thing that you want, you don't really want, and here's why, or it's going to be bad for you as a whole for these other reasons that we've all considered because it's our full-time job to do so, but maybe you haven't. Let's talk about it. If they're not prepared for that, they'll just end up, I don't want to say devolving into chaos, but some version thereof.
Yeah, and you get defensive almost when you feel like, oh, no, you're not listening to what I want. But sometimes we are, right? Sometimes as a vendor, we are listening to what all of our partners are asking for and what what we feel like we can give them in the amount of time that they need for it to to be live, right? And we're taking into account everyone's opinions and ideas, and those are the partners when they're more vocal is the ones that we hear more often. But there's a lot that just don't give their feedback, or they don't have a mechanism to be able to do that. And you miss out on hearing their opinions as well too. It's like when if you went to college or you were in high school or anything like that, and you were a quiet person, it was always the person who answered the most questions or who talked the most in class. That's the one who drove the conversation a lot of the times, and that's every conversation probably that you've been around, right? The person who's the loudest, who is the most talkative, they're the ones that are going to drive the conversation. But the person that's the quietest is really thinking about what's happening and what's going on, and they're processing it. And I think that's the feedback we want, is the ones who are really taking the time to think about it before they speak on it, and finding those little gems of how they're using a product or what's going wrong. That's what we want for sure.
What's the psychological term for like, as you learn more about a subject, you feel like you know less, so you view yourself as less intelligent than those around you, and the less you know on a subject, the more you believe you know because you're not aware of what you don't know.
Well, I guess it's a little bit of imposter syndrome, right? Like you know a lot, but in your mind, you don't think you know a lot. And so it really messes with you sometimes or, you hear someone talking about like a trend or an idea and you're like, hey, I thought about that too, but I just didn't think it was good enough. So I think validating that feedback, whether it be from the loudest person or the quietest, helps
Yeah.
them continue to want to give that feedback, right?
Yeah, it's I knew it was popular. The Dunning-Kruger effect.
That I would have never got that name ever.
It is
the Dunning-Kruger
effect. It is when a person's lack of knowledge or skill in a certain area causes them to overestimate their own competence. By contrast, this also drives those who excel in a given area to think that it is simple for everyone else, leading them to underestimate their own abilities. So it's like the more you learn, the less you feel like you know. The less you learn, the more you feel like you know. It's like, that's, I guess, a simple way of putting it. And you're absolutely right. In my mind, the job of like a really, really high quality community manager is to find the people that are not vocal. And if you don't, they'll never speak up for themselves. They'll
Mhm.
never jump into the conversation in the heat of it or offer some advice that might be, flowing against what the community at large is given. But if you purposely call them out and obviously make sure they're comfortable with it, and you say, hey, you usually have some really great things to say. What do you think about this? And you give them that time and that platform and that space. If you don't do that, all that good advice just washes away and never comes back.
Yeah, and so what areas do you see, turn the tables on you a little bit, what areas, do you see where you can find those people? It's difficult to find them, I feel like, and it's a needle in a haystack sometimes.
So some of this might sound, I guess, incredibly, it's like when you say it, you're like, yeah, that makes so much sense, of course. And then realizing when it's happening, or realizing when examples of these are occurring, is very hard to detect in the moment unless you've like really trained yourself to recognize the following. if somebody asks an intelligent question, and by intelligent, I don't mean an intelligent person asks a question that somebody asks, if you consider the question intelligent, it does one of two things. It is confirming or challenging their own beliefs, or it is helping you realize that you should challenge your own belief or confirm your own belief, right? So when I would be going through, when I was doing sales calls, this is how I would recognize if a partner had really understood the needs of their own business, what I could do for them, and where those meet or don't meet is if I would show up to a sales call. And I've said this before, I'd say, give me your acceptance criteria. Give me all the things that you know this needs to do for your company. And if I can't do them, you can't work with me. And many, many partners say, I don't have that. Just show me what you do. And the partners that did have that, they're like, here's my Excel spreadsheet. Here's the things that are non-negotiable. Here are things that we would really like to see. Frankly, if you have all of this, we're just going to work with you. It's like, those are the partners where one of two things happened. I either knew immediately, hey, we can work with you and we should absolutely be working together for these reasons. The second was partners where we wanted to work with, but we didn't quite fit all of their needs. It was like a really eye-opening experience for us to say, are we building the right things? Are we listening to the right people? Are we approaching the community in the correct way? And then the second part of recognizing these people is you mentioned like sometimes they're quiet. That's not always the case, but I would say largely, the people who are the most thoughtful, there is no knee-jerk response. There is a thought out, let me go back, let me think about it. They're not being lazy. It's not that they're not willing to confront you. It's that the reason they have such great advice is because the way they make their decisions is through this incredibly thoughtful process. And so if you don't give them the time, if they say, I need to go think about this, if you don't give them the time to go do that, you're not going to get their response. They're just going to say, no, I'm not going to give you a response. I haven't thought about it enough. I'm not going to make a judgment call here because I don't think I have enough to make a judgment call. That's how I usually recognize it, is if they slow the pace of the conversation down purposely to try and get more information. And if they ask intelligent questions that challenge or confirm beliefs, or that's the aim of those questions. It's not just yes or no. And it's not just jumping on the bandwagon or jumping off the bandwagon. It's like, well, given all these other things, why do you still believe this? That's a super intelligent question. I don't know. Let me think about it.
Yeah. I think all that stuff is valuable. Like how to find those individuals and when you're having the conversations, and the sales team is the first line of defense always for that. And they're your biggest advocate in your company because they're the ones that are having those deep calls and the SEs, technical trainers, all that stuff. They're the ones that are figuring out the problems and hopefully being the ones to help you solve them too.
Well, let's wrap up on how do you identify these people?
I think a lot of it is through conversation, right? And asking broadly. Sometimes it's better to send something out to a mass and see who responds back, who has the time. But I think face-to-face contact is always more valuable to me to figure that stuff out and figuring out a solution to a problem, meeting those individuals who might not feel comfortable sending or don't have the time to send in feedback or join the community or anything like that. It's at these events, these smaller ones to even the larger ones, finding those people who maybe are alone at the event or have come up and they're a little bit shy, but they have like a wealth of knowledge of what you do, but they just aren't comfortable asking those questions. And so maybe the person on the other end needs to be kind of understanding of that and meet people where they're at. And so I always try to meet someone where they're at. If they're not comfortable, having a conversation with me, maybe they'll have a better conversation with somebody more technical where they feel like they can really elaborate on certain specifics and feel comfortable with the conversation rather than it just being with me. So
all wise advice. Go listen to the people who are typically more quiet, and you might get Incredibly
Great
thoughtful
feedback.
response.
Yeah.
Awesome. For folks who wanted to connect with you or connect with ScalePad, how would you suggest they do that?
Yeah, so you can reach out to me and the rest of the community team at community@scalepad.com, or you can go check out our website, scalepad.com. We did launch a new community last December, and that's community.scalepad.com. And you can join for free and check out our resources. Give us some great feedback if you want to do that too. And always, you can check me on LinkedIn, shoot me a message if you want to have a further conversation.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us. It was wonderful chatting with you. And thanks, everyone, for listening.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime. See you all in the next one. Thanks so much for tuning in to Gone Fishing. If you want to find out more about high-quality security awareness training campaigns, how to launch them in ways that actually engage employees to change their habits, then check us out, FinSecurity, at finsec.io. That's PHINSEC.io, or click all of the wonderful links in our show notes. Thanks for fishing with me today, and we'll see you next time.